Hey guys, I'm Jonathan White, and today I have a very special guest with me, Jude Trapani, who has been my teacher, teaching me Tai Chi and qigong and energetic practices, as well as a mentor over the past couple of years. So, something I want to talk about now, Jude, is kind of how this can integrate into someone maybe expanding their expression of sexual energy. So, something I talk about a lot is how issues like porn addiction, I think it's safe to say that human sexuality has been kind of hijacked by dark forces, and people are reenacting these kind of unconscious patterns sexually. So maybe if you have any insight on this, maybe your own experience and how, how these practices can help you to sort of redefine and liberate your sexual energy to more creative outlets.
Yes, yeah, great topic. The big picture for me is managing one's energy body well. And um, that wisdom mostly has been lost. We don't get, when we take sexual education in school, people don't talk about managing your energy system and creating this vitality, and then we get overwhelmed with, especially as men, the number of orgasms a man has in his lifetime. If there's too many, we really diminish our energy field. And as a young man, I I did not get very good instruction on this, and having orgasms was just like, it's all up to you. You can have as many as you want. You can entertain yourself, get your feet, it feels good. So just do it as much as you want. Who cares? Um, and a lot of it is a metaphysical activity in itself, because when one has an orgasm, we don't quite understand the spiritual gate opening that causes, which is part of the elation. The elation is really not just physical, chemical, and hormonal. It's energetic. It's like, wow, that one blew me back. That was awesome. And so rather than, the times when a sexual partner is not there, and we get the desire, the porn world has been there to exploit the uneducated Western man. It's just the way it is. It's right there at our fingertips more and more. When I was 20, 18, the internet wasn't going, and so magazines were the hot ticket and things like that. But the an unguided young man is subject to losing one's vitality through all this. And even in a relationship, like you've talked about a number of times in your videos, Johnny, the intimacy of a man and a woman coming together, or any kind of sexual activity, it is not just a physical act, and many of the Taoist monks talk about not having any orgasms ever. And it's all about retaining your vitality, because the sexual energy is so powerful and it's such a big part of the human being. And so to understand that causes one to say, oh, maybe that's not my entertainment tonight at 11 o'clock, just to put myself to sleep and feel relaxed. Maybe there's other activities, like you talk about a number of times: physical activity, intellectual curiosity and activity. And as soon, it's kind of like, there's a movie with Tom Cruise when he comes over to America. I think they were from the UK somewhere, and he's traveling with Nicole Kidman, who's this beautiful young woman. He's all sexually attracted to her, and they can't get together. And so he gets all frustrated, and he goes out to the bar and finds this bar that has fights that people bet on, and he's really good at it. And so he gets all pumped up, and he can't get sexual gratification. So he goes out, and the next scene, he's punching this dude in the face and winning the boxing match. And so to me, it's a very natural expression of what do you do with this pent up energy? You know, you want to get rid of it somehow, some way. And with this understanding and instruction of how to integrate this energy so that you have more vitality, you have more mental capacity, you're actually smarter, you're more curious, you're more aware, you're more physically strong, and you integrate your sexual energy in a more diverse way versus just having orgasms.
Now, would you say that there's a sort of a distinction between ejaculatory orgasms and a more subtle sexual connection where you're getting that orgasm pulsation, and we could consider that an orgasm, but there's no actual explosive ejaculation happening?
Yep, and there's lots of material out by some really wise people that have been almost the spokespeople for this more oral tradition is now written, which is really cool because we can find it now. And one thing I struggled with as an 18-year-old when I first started having intimacy with my girlfriend and having sex for the first time, I was so excited. You know, I did the typical thing where I couldn't even hold it in. You know, I was like, bam! I just got so overexcited, and the typical thing of the woman is there like, oh my gosh, it's over already, and I struggled with that through my early 20s, and I could have a lot of orgasms physically, ejaculatory orgasms, but I didn't have any stamina. And it wasn't until a little bit later in life, after I started to, through Tai Chi and qigong, learn how to manage my energy system, that I started to control my ejaculation, and I could make it last a long time. But it took a lot of training because my training was like just to make it as fun as possible and have an orgasm, and what it did was it taught me that I could have more intimacy with my partner, which was much more enjoyable. And I started to do that activity that I read in books about having an orgasm but not ejaculating. And what I found was that it didn't give me the same feeling of the elation, you know, but I could have this really amazing experience that was very satisfying. And I started to do that without ejaculating at all. And so then I would go to sleep and still have all my vitality. And so there was an intimacy, there was a satisfied partner, and I got to keep my vitality. And then I started to think, because I talked to a few people that were experimenting with this, and these guys didn't have ejaculations ever. It was like they just decided that they were going to have non-ejaculation sex, period. And I realized for me and my partner that that was not the answer for me. There was a time and a place for that ejaculation experience, and there was a time to hold back, you might say. And so that's been my own personal version of it, is to know intuitively when I have the energy and when I feel really good and when I have an excess of energy and I can expend it that way, versus like, not today. I want to have the intimacy, but I'm not going to just, you might say, waste that energy and not be able to really, it's a disservice to myself at times to go all the way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It's about finding the balance, because like, I've studied these practices with a lot of different teachers, and some of the guys who are like, you need to hold your ejaculation forever, never ejaculate again, no matter what. They tend to be a bit rigid, I've noticed in other areas of the life. So I think that concept of balance, there's a time and place for it, but obviously overdoing it's going to drain your vitality. So it's about holding that balance in that regard.
Can I add something quickly to that?
Yeah, yeah.
I talked with some women about that because I was curious on how a woman felt about that management of the ejaculation. And there were lots of different views. I mean, I didn't poll lots and lots, but the information that I did get was there's something magical about that ejaculation orgasm, especially together, that creates this bond and this energetic experience and brings in things that we really don't even understand, fantastic things that help our energy fields and we share. And so to never ejaculate, I asked women about that and they said that that's a bummer.
Mm.
That there's like it diminishes the experience if there's always if the man always holds back, and it's almost like it's out of balance. It's out of balance. And so I believe, I mean, that's not for everybody. Some guys are totally great with never having ejaculation and that works for them, and that's fantastic. I personally found that there's a balance there.
I agree as well. That's been my experience. I experimented with going long periods of time. Like, am I never going to ejaculate again? But I did find that on occasion, it just leads to a nice sort of connection, between your partner and you. And it's almost like a cycle of, how a woman has a monthly cycle, a man can have a monthly or whatever period of time cycle of releasing and then starting over, regenerating energy. So yeah. And then to kind of wrap this up, I want to touch on the subject of, in Tai Chi, we always talk about kind of moving from your center, holding your center, and what that means and how that relates to, our situation in the world, being able to stay balanced, stay grounded, and centered amidst, chaotic external circumstances that we're in at this time.
Yeah, that's great. I have this little saying that if you can do it physically, you can then do it mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And so that to me is part of the beauty of Tai Chi and Qigong, is that if one can move from, like, I'll show you, if one can move from the center first and then do the exercise, everything starts here. And you can practice that physically through the form. You can start to do it mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And a good example is being flexible. If you're not flexible physically, it's, in my opinion, it's much more difficult to be flexible emotionally and mentally.
Mm.
That's the rigid opinion, like blah blah, and I'm right. And you ask somebody like that to touch their toes, and often they can't. They can't touch their toes because they're just not flexible. So, sounds kind of cliche, but in this ever-changing world, how does one stay flexible and moving from their center and creating everything not from the external world first, but from the internal world first, and then that moves out. And this is part of my spiritual growth that I incorporate Tai Chi and Qigong into, is the realization of how we create our reality. And I weave in this stuff in my instruction, is using the breath and the qigong movement and the moving from the center to create a more solid and sovereign self that then can interact with the world in a much better way. And I picture the samurai warrior from 500 years ago. And who who would that be? What would it be like to be that person, or the Taoist monk? And we have this mental image of this person that's walking through the world, and they are so solid in who they are as a person because they've done this self-development work. You could use the samurai path, the Tai Chi path, the Taoist monk path, the Kundalini yoga practitioner path, the Sufi dancer path, the African dancer. It doesn't matter. There's all these different ways of becoming this solid, sovereign being that then it makes life just much easier, better. You start to create your reality more effectively. You know, we talk about these things like, I would like to be a happy, joyous, abundant, um, just a solid human being. And how does one get there? Well, are we just going to watch politics on the news and become a better person, or are we going to do these practices that really get us into this place where we have the balance of the Tai Chi symbol back here? And that's what 0 point Tai Chi is all about. It's getting into the 0 point, which is representative of the center and that sovereign being that's just absolutely solid, like the embodiment of the giant sequoia tree.
And I want to share just on a practical level. Something you've helped me work with is just walking. When you're walking around, the other day I was doing
Yeah.
kind of the Tai Chi walking, right? And I realized, because I was thinking, I was in my head, and I realized I was literally like walking from my chest. I was kind of leaning forward, and it felt like my upper body was pulling me. And I relaxed, kind of sank down, and felt my belly. And then when I started moving from my center, walking from here, I felt so much more grounded, and I felt the chi start moving through my body. So I think that's a very simple, practical application of what you're talking about.
Yep, that's great, great. How relaxed are you? And I love your example because I think about that very thing. And uh, I'm on the email list for Eckhart Tolle, and
Hmm.
and they'll send out him and his staff. They'll send out the little cartoon, and it'll say, "Be in the present moment." And you look at it, and you're like, "Oh yeah, that's cool." And what does that really mean? And so if you're walking like this, you're not in the present moment. You have to be in. Some people walk like this, some people walk like this. And then who is it to just really flow and be in the present moment? I'm on call. um, so that present moment is practiced in all sorts of things. We don't just do our you go to Tai Chi class and you do an hour of Tai, feel really good, and you go home and your dog is annoying and you smack it. It's like, oh man, really? Or you're doing the dishes and you're not in the present moment and you're thinking about all sorts of other stuff. You see, it's a discipline that can flow into all aspects of life where you maintain your center and then your vitality. And then you actually, when you get in the flow like this, there's less concern about vitality and sexual energy, and it doesn't have to be such a big deal in life because everything just kind of seems to flow and fit together a little bit better, and you're not as hard on yourself if you have an ejaculation and you feel depleted. you're like, oh man, but it's okay. I learned something, and next time I can understand this a little bit better.
Beautiful. Well, Jude, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a really great conversation. Thanks for taking your time. And if people are interested in working with you, what kind of programs do you have? Where can people find you online? Just feel free to share that.
Yeah, thanks. My website is zeropointtaichi.com. And I have a services page. So I offer private classes one on one, and I also offer group classes. Um, I'll, my next group class is going to start probably in October. I may delay it till November a little bit because of some things that I have going. Um, I also plan on doing some retreats in Montana this next year. Hopefully, the COVID stuff settles down and people can travel a little bit more. People can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram at zeropointtaichi.com or zeropointtaichi. And if people have any questions or want to know a little bit more about me, you can drop me an email at jude@zeropointtaichi.com.
All right. Thank you. I'll put the link to your website and social media in the description of the video.
This
So
was fun. Thank
this
you,
was fun.
Johnny.
Thanks, Jude. Take care, and we'll talk soon.
Okay.